It's not, yeah, start.
Okay, so good evening, Beavers and friends of MIT. Welcome to the continuation of our Operating in the New Normal series webinar. The topic this time is reinventing your career during COVID-19. My name is Ching Soo. I'm the Vice President of the MIT Club of Singapore. Today, I'm delighted to welcome Adrian Chu. Adrian is the CEO and founder of Career Agility International, a global career strategy consulting firm that helps executives achieve career longevity and satisfaction. He is a master career coach and also an author. Adrian began his career in Shell and GE Plastics and spends 12 years in headhunting in a global executive search firm. In 2017, he started his own consultancy and now leads a team of career strategists to help his ever-expanding pool of clients. So if you like what you hear in this session, you can tune in to listen to him every Thursday morning on 1FM 91.3 and also on Money FM 89.3. On a personal note, Adrian and I met 15 years ago through a mutual friend. I was in my career crossroads, looking for a professional executive coach. And Adrian found me a really good one. And that coach had a profound impact in helping me pivot my career. So thank you, Adrian. With that, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Adrian Chu.
Thank you very much, Ching Soo. Hi, good evening, everybody. Thanks a lot for spending the evening here with me, and I'm hoping we can share a lot more insights together. If you have your glass of wine ready, like Ching, please feel free to cheers and bottoms up. But if you're not, I hope you will get your fill of career advice for the evening. So today we're going to talk about careers, okay? You know, in careers for us play a very huge part of our lives. What we always say is that when two people meet for the first time, two strangers meet, first you exchange names, exchange some pleasantries, and then one of the first questions that come up is, what do you do, right? Yeah, nobody asks, you know, how many kids you have, are you married, you know, or what's your blood type, or what's your shoe size. People always ask, what do you do? And why is that so? Because careers define us. The jobs we do define us. Sometimes, unfortunately, it defines us a bit too much, to the point where when the job is taken away, either because you get retrenched or when you're retired, you know, you feel as though a huge chunk of your identity is ripped apart as well. So that's why careers play an important part in our lives, not just in terms of bringing food to the table, but it gives us purpose and meaning in life as well. Okay, so that's why in today's context, careers are very important. And a lot of people today are talking about careers because the career landscape has changed tremendously, not just because of COVID. Because if you look at it, even before COVID struck in early part of this year, 2019 was already quite a kind of a stressful year. I know most of us can't remember what 2019 was because 2020 was such a crazy year, right? But if you remember 2019, there was the Hong Kong riots, the student riots. There was an impending trade war between Donald Trump and China. You had the Australian bushfires. You had so many crazy things going on. And even before COVID struck, 2020 was looking like it was going to be a bad year. And when COVID struck, it got even worse. But what is interesting to note is that COVID has been the great catalyst in changing the way businesses operate. It's been a big catalyst in changing the way we operate as well. And I wanted to share with you a little bit more about how C19 has change the environment. But even beyond that, the old rules of career planning and everything has been chucked out the window. Okay, and that's why we want to talk about careers today. If one of the things I always joke about is that we've always been getting very bad career advice, and whenever I say that, it's mainly because, you know, what was the career advice your teachers gave you when you were young? Jingsu, what advice can you remember your teacher telling you?
Be a doctor, lawyer, or accountant.
Right? Yes, correct. And what advice? And funny thing, the advice my parents gave me was, you better study how you become rope sweeper. Okay, so a lot of things have changed, and unfortunately, a lot of us have not changed along with the time. So today we're going to talk about careers. We're going to talk about the new pressures on and the new rules of a career. Okay, so we're going to talk about reinventing a career in the C19 market. Let me do a quick intro on myself. So I've like what Ching Su said, I've had a very colorful career. I was in Shell GE Plastics. I had a long and very exciting run as a C-suite headhunter, and that's how I met Ching Su actually. So we had in my decade-long exposure and experience as a headhunter to a lot of C-suite business leaders, I always had a chance to sit down with them and ask them, what made you so successful the way you are? What were your strategies you deployed? How do you become the success that you are? And a lot of them very openly shared all their advice with me. And over the years, I've locked down the advice and I've captured it all in this book, which I published in 2015, Career Crossroads, A Headhunter's Guide to Career Strategy. In 2017, 2018, I decided to leave the corporate world and start my own business. So that's where I am right now. And right now we run a career strategy coaching business that has offices, that has a partner network across the world. Anyway, as I want to share this idea with you. Okay, now that we are into the presentation proper. Even as we move towards retirement, there are two things which I always advise all our clients to do. That is what we call the twin goals of your career planning. Okay, the first thing we need to look at and first thing we need to strive for is what we call career sustainability. Now, the big question we always ask people is, what is worse than being unemployed? If you retrenched, if you lost your job, and you're unemployed, what is worse than not having a job? And the answer, surprisingly, is unemployability. Okay, if you're unemployable, it's worse than being unemployed. Because if you're unemployable, what it means is that you go for interview after interview after interview. No one wants to hire you. There's no offer. In fact, you're lucky if you get an interview because you send in your CV, people look at your CV and they go, nah, I don't think it's suitable for some reason or other. So that's why we need to ensure that whatever decision we make, we have to work towards career sustainability or career longevity. Okay, to be able to be employable in some form or other until the day you want to stop working, until the day you want to stop work, which is the day you retire. Okay, so you must remain employable. Now, what are some of the causes of unemployability? Some of you might say, don't worry, it's okay. I got an MBA. I got an MBA from some branded business school. I've got MIT, a master's. I'll always be in demand. Okay. Unfortunately, the reality of the market is that the market is shifting so fast that the demand for the skills can expire. Okay, so you could be in an industry that is in decline. You could be in a function that is going to be replaced. So whatever it is, you need to be mindful that the next steps that you do, whenever you plan your career, you must plan for sustainability, which means that even into your 50s, I know some of us here are in their 30s, in their 40s, but you must plan that even into my 50s, I must be in demand. And what does that mean? Means that you need to have the skills, the knowledge, and the expertise that someone's willing to buy. Okay, so whatever it is, you have to keep thinking, who's going to buy? What are my skills? Who's going to buy? And I'm going to talk about this a bit later on. So one of the main goals is career sustainability, which is how do I remain employable and in demand until the day I want to stop working? Now, the other area which you want to look at as well is what we call career satisfaction. Now, career satisfaction is what makes you happy. And for different people, it's different things. Let me just ask quickly around the room. So let's see. So Sashi, what makes you happy at work?
Yeah, ask me. Yeah.
Yeah.
What makes me happy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like interacting with people and working with them. So that actually makes me happy because I'm in a front end sales role. So yeah.
Lovely, and which is what keeps you going, right?
Yep.
And if you were to ask 5 different people, no, you might get 5 different answers. And what's happening is that even for the same individual like yourself, Sashi, if I were to ask you this question 10 years ago, it might have been different as well. And 10 years from now, it might be different.
Totally different. It would have been totally different.
Correct. So the whole idea is you need to know what drives you. And sometimes it may not be the money. Sometimes it's just the meaningful work that you do. Sometimes it's just the company you keep, okay? So you need to figure out what actually gives you satisfaction and drive towards it. Because all too often, we decide and we think that a big title, a big car, a big paycheck, a huge travel budget, things like that, are signs of career success. But, if that's not what drives you, you're going to get burnt out after a while. So that's why the 2 things you need to figure out is how do I achieve career sustainability and how do I achieve career satisfaction? And these are 2 twin goals which you have to drive towards. And it's not easy getting that because these 2 things do not happen accidentally, or it might happen if you're lucky, okay? But what you need is in order to achieve these 2 goals, you must have a career strategy. And a career strategy is what we coach. Career strategy is all about the plan that you make to ensure that you have sustainability and satisfaction and you're happy with your job. And it's besides just having a strategy, you also need to have the agility to take on the opportunities that come, the agility to be able to identify the risk or the risk areas, which I'm going to go into in a while. And how do you avoid it? And ultimately be there to latch on to any opportunities that happen, okay? Because Oprah Winfrey once said, Oprah Winfrey was once asked, why are you so lucky? And Oprah Winfrey said, there's no such thing as luck. Luck happens when opportunity meets preparedness. If you're not prepared for it, opportunity comes, opportunity goes, okay? So the whole idea of being career agile, having career agility, which is the name of our company, is that you are prepared to grab the opportunities when they come, okay? So just this morning, I was talking to a client who was lamenting to me that he was never very agile, okay? And the funny thing was that he said, he sat across a table a couple of years back with a CEO of who today is a very famous CEO, okay? And during those days, the company he was with was still a fledgling startup. And he sat across the table with that CEO, and the CEO told him, actually, I'm looking for a sales director who can do this, can do that, can do this, can do that. And this client of mine, the younger version of himself, said, wow, that's really interesting, I wonder if there's someone in the market who could do that. But he didn't realize the CEO was hinting that I want to hire you. Okay, it was just a coffee conversation. And then the stupidest thing he said was, let me recommend someone to you who would be great at this job, okay? And then he recommended the guy to the job. The guy got the job, and now the company has IPO'd, okay, and the guy's retired. And he's saying, Donnie, that could have been me if I knew that he was hinting to me, you see. So he was not agile enough to be able to catch that opportunity when it landed. So no luck happened. So that's why what we want to do is we want to talk about you having a career strategy and having the agility to reach it, because the rules of work has changed tremendously. Today, right now, you see, you have certain things that have happened, and one of them is basically the whole concept of lifelong employment has gone down the drain. Absolutely, totally gone down the drain. Okay, my dad worked in Standard Chartered Bank for 30 years, one job. After that, he retired nicely. He got his gold watch and everything. But in today's context, there is no more single job anymore. Okay, so what that means is that you cannot count on your company to give you career direction or your company to look after your career. And the harsh reality in today's business is this. There's a lot of disruptions going on. One of the key disruptions we are seeing now is this concept of what I, for lack of a better word, global talent sourcing. Okay, you know, we see a lot of Singaporeans today complaining about, oh man, foreigners are coming in, foreign talents are stealing our jobs. We should not let them come in so easily. Let's kick out foreigners. Let's block their EPs. Let's blah, 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 blah. A lot of whiners and complainers out there, okay? And my response to that is very simple. The foreigners in Singapore stealing jobs, it should be the least of your worries, because worst come to worst, if the government wanted to, they could just turn off the tap and kick everybody out if they wanted to, okay, which they won't. The biggest your job now is not the foreigners in Singapore stealing your job. It's the foreigners in everywhere else stealing your job. Because if there's one thing that COVID has taught us, is that you don't need to go to the office to get your work done. And if you don't need to go to the office to get the work done, you don't really need to be in Singapore to get your work done. Okay, someone else in KL can, if they're good enough, if they have the skills, they could technically do your work if you're not careful. Or someone else in KL could do just 50% of your work. Okay, suddenly you're no longer needed for that role, because why am I paying you a full salary when I can outsource this? So we are seeing an increasing threat of what we call global talent sourcing that could disrupt the employment market. We're also seeing AI coming in, and earlier Cheng Su was talking about AI as well. So AI is coming in to take away bits and pieces of your job too. And what we're looking at now also is this thing about skills obsolescence. Your relevance to the market, it's shifting. Okay, so for instance, if you are working in a bank and if you are doing banking operations, frontline stuff, hey, you know, managing a branch, who goes to bank branches anymore? So there are certain things that are going to be obsolete. You must be mindful of it. And of course, what we want to talk about now, the biggest concept change I want to share with you today is this concept of the gig economy. So the gig economy basically means that nothing is permanent anymore. Your job is just a gig. A gig, by the way, is a musical performance by a band in a pub. Now, what that means is that you can have, you know, bands are rarely resident. You're either a resident band or you're not. Okay, nowadays there are rarely resident bands. What that means is that if you are a performer and you're in a pub, you know, you perform for 2 weeks, maybe a month. After that, you move on to another pub. And even as you're performing in that pub, enjoying the moment, you're in the back of your mind, you're thinking, next month, where do I go? Who should I approach? Which area should I go to? Should I be operating in this part of Singapore or that part of Singapore? So that's what a gig is all about. Okay, think about your next job as a short gig, or in fact, think of your current job as a gig, which means that another 2 or 3 years, either you outgrow the job or the job outgrows you, and you have to exit. What that forces your thinking is that, okay, I only have a 2-year lifespan here. Who's going to hire me next? Which company is going to hire me? What are they looking for? Do I have the skills to want to join that company? Do I know the person in that company who will be hiring my future boss? More importantly, does that future boss know me? So there are a lot of things involved with what we call career agility, because when you have the strategy to think that I'm not going to be in this job for long, I'm not going to retire in this company, therefore at some point in time I will have to move. And if I move, what that means is that who do I move to? Where do I go? So you must have the strategy in play and the agility to get in front of the person so that they can hire you. Okay, so because of the gig economy, your mindset has to shift. And of course, the other thing I want to change as well, I want to talk to you as quickly is about this concept of career advancement versus career sustainability. You know, in the old days, we were always taught to climb up a ladder as fast as we can. But you know, there is a diminishing returns. If you climb up too fast and suddenly at age 35 or age 40, you are at $750,000 package, supposing, okay, then suddenly when you want to change jobs, people are going to say, Danny, you're too expensive. Why am I paying a 35-year-old $500,000? Okay, I have a client who is a global tax director. Okay, he is at about 700 grand a year, and he could command that kind of salary in the old days. Okay, old days as in 2 years ago. Why? Because he said that I help my company, okay, huge multinational company. I help my company to avoid taxes, okay, to the point of a lot more than what I'm being paid. But because of Donald Trump and he's been tightening up all the loopholes for tax havens in Ireland and all those other places. Right now, the loopholes don't exist anymore, and suddenly he's unable to help the company avoid that much tax, and as a result, the tax functions have scaled down somewhat. Okay, but the point is, right now he is having a difficult time looking for jobs because and in his own words, I peaked too soon. Okay, so you have to remember that your career is a marathon, not a sprint. And of course, once again, sustainability. So what we want to talk about today is in a COVID-19 environment, that how do you reinvent yourself? If you want to do a switch, how do you do a switch? And one of the things is that, you know, you have to figure out where you want to go. It's not enough to say, I want a job, I want to switch, but switch to what? So one of the frameworks which we recommend is this. There are basically four areas which you can do a very general move towards, okay, to have an idea. Number one is you can either stay in your industry or leave the industry. Or you can stay in your function or leave your function. So then you got 4 possibilities. The easiest one is on the top left corner, which is same function, same industry. Basically, it means you join your competitor, okay, as the function which you're in. That's straightforward, easy peasy, correct? But what if you are already, say, one of my other clients was one of the senior commercial directors for Coca-Cola. And she didn't want to join she wanted to leave the industry because you're number one, why would I join Pepsi, right? So she left, and she had to pivot into a separate industry, okay, by the same function. So sometimes the upper left quadrant doesn't work. Then what's the second easiest way of doing it? Like what I said earlier, same role, same function, but a different industry. How do you move it there? So if you're in HR or finance, that's usually quite easy. But if you're in a technical role, that's a bit more difficult. Okay, and that would require some strategies and some planning involved. Okay, which is what we assist in. The third way to do it is you stay in the same industry, but you switch your role and function. But because of your knowledge of the industry, you're able to do something else. Like if you're in sales, suddenly, you know, if you're in sales of semiconductors, supposing, you know, then you want to move over to supply chain semiconductors. Same industry, but different functions, possible as well, okay? But some of us want to do a total, absolute switch, a mid-career switch of sorts. Different industry, different role. Is it possible? The answer is yes, but you got to be very, very careful. Why? Because it's not as easy as as the government says it is. Okay. Why do I say that? You watch a lot of government ads that come up and say that, no, do your career switch, is very easy, but it's never easy, especially for high flyers like us. A career switch could mean a huge drastic pay cut. A career switch could mean coming out of your comfort zone totally and trying something new and bombing out totally, okay? So it's a high-risk job, it's a high-risk move which you need to consider very, very carefully. So tread carefully if you're thinking of going into that particular space, okay? You must have contingencies, but all in all, that's why we always say you must have that career strategy to embrace that quadrant, that corner, and you must have the agility to be able to survive in that quadrant. Okay, and there are ways and tips and strategies to coping in that quadrant. Now, so for many of us here, how many of us here, just curious show of hands, how many of us here are thinking of a career switch or reinventing their career anytime in the next 3 to 5 years? Anyone?
Me. I'm already switching. Yeah,
Ching Su has switched. He's very agile, so that's why we like him. Hang on a while, sorry. I need to turn on the. Okay, sorry about that. So if you're thinking of a career switch, here are some things that you need to figure out. Okay, so number one, from our experience, the need for switching career or the desire to switch careers it's not something that happens overnight. You don't just wake up one morning and go, ah, what a wonderful, beautiful day. I think I'll do a career switch. Okay, nobody does that. Okay, it's normally based on a trigger or a set of triggers. And the trigger is usually either a new boss comes in, or something happened at the office, or you are sick and tired of the work that you do. Or it could be a family matter, or it could be a health issue or health scare. Okay, so normally when that happens, one of the first reactions to that trigger is usually, I want to find a new job. I want to get a new job. Okay, so when the trigger happens, a lot of times we act impulsively, and from our experience, we see a lot of people acting very impulsively when something happens. Our suggestion is, number one, don't panic. Okay, if you are at a career crossroad right now, there are strategies you can deploy, and I'm going to run through them. But number one, don't be hasty. Don't go, oh shucks, I want to quit my job. You go up to your boss and say, boss, here's my resignation letter. Okay, I quit. And by the way, you suck. Okay, don't do that. Don't panic. Don't be hasty when you're facing your mid-career crisis, or if you want to reinvent your career, or you want to move. The second thing is you need to understand the market. Now, the market right now, because of COVID, has become a bit more, a bit quieter. Okay, but that doesn't mean there's no opportunities. Now, when I say look at the market, I'm not talking about the stock market. I'm not talking about the jobs market. Okay, a lot of people talk about jobs market, but I refuse to talk about jobs market. I want to talk about skills. What are the skills market? What are the skills that are in demand now? What's the knowledge and expertise that's in demand now? Basically, what is in need? What does the market need? Okay, to function, to operate, and you have to look at your own industry on your own. Okay, where the needs coming from? You know, even if you're in a particular industry, it is never a straightforward. I mean, okay, give you an example. If you're in supply chain, anyone here in supply chain? Okay, if you're in supply chain, you know supply chain is not just about supply chain, right? Supply chain is a whole value activity from demand planning to supply planning, to forecasting, to production, to warehousing, to logistics, to reverse logistics, a whole stretch of things, okay? So you need to understand your market, which certain areas are growing faster than the rest. So it's like supply chain. Yeah, right now the strategic piece of supply chain is growing quite fast because a lot of companies are trying to figure out in COVID environment, how do I re-strategize the supply chain? Or the last mile piece of it is going like, hey, you know, let's move, how do I optimize the last mile? So you need to know the market, your market, where the demand is coming from. And then you need to figure out on your own, know yourself, what are your skills? Do I have the skills that this market needs? If I don't have the skills, how do I get them? How do I get exposure? This is a fast growing space. I need to be in that space. How do I accumulate the skills? How do I pitch myself? So once again, employability is a matter of economics 101. Okay, let's put it this way. It's about supply and demand. Where is the demand for your skills and knowledge and expertise coming from? Do you have the skills, knowledge, and expertise to supply? Okay, so when demand meets supply is when employment happens. And you know what? The demand will keep moving because the market evolves. And as the market evolves, are you evolving fast enough to match it? And in order to do that, you must have the agility to evolve along with the market. And a strategy, once again, to stay ahead of the curve. So you need to know the market, you need to know yourself. And once you know the market and yourself, you develop a career strategy. In order to reinvent yourself, it's not something that happens overnight, okay? I decided to pivot from headhunting into career coaching and to run Asia's top career coaching service, okay? As far back as 2012. In 2012, I had a vision and I said to all the people around me, you know, I'm going to leave headhunting, and I had a very lucrative and successful practice back then. And I said, look, I'm going to leave headhunting. I'm going to set up Asia's first career consulting company. And individuals are going to pay me out of their pockets, okay, pay my for the wisdom and the knowledge that I have and the expertise. And everyone laughed at me back then. Everyone laughed at me. They said it's ridiculous, okay? But you know, I had a strategy. from 2012 and all the way to 2018, when I started the business, I was following a strategy. Okay, if you ask Ching Su, he'll remember back in 2015, I was talking to him as far back as 2015 about this whole idea. Okay, so you have to develop a longer term career strategy when it comes to reinventing your career, and then get mentors. Get advice from your mentors. There's a lot of things that you don't know. Okay, that's the fact of it, and there's a lot of things you didn't know. And how do you get information on that? Okay, talk to people, get advice, get a coach, hire a coach, talk to your mentors, okay? Talk to people in the industry, soak up as much as you can, learn as much as you can, get advice. And if there are gaps, what we recommend is you have to invest in yourself. So in other words, even if you have to take a pay cut to get into the space, just to soak up the information there, by all means, go ahead. So in 2015, I left headhunting and I joined an outplacement company. Okay, I took a 50% pay cut just to join that company for 3 years. Why? Because I knew that my biggest gap was in running an agency, running a coaching agency. I didn't know how to do it. So I left headhunting. I took a huge pay cut to get into this company where I learned and I ran the business development for 3 years. And when I left, I had the skills, I had the networks, and I had all the cost structures, and I had full mastery of how the business was run. Okay, and then I left to do my own business, and that allowed me to run a successful practice today. So what we are saying is this: you have to invest in yourself. You have to learn. You have to know what your gaps are. How do you narrow the gaps? And if you have to invest in training and everything, or even in a coach, just go ahead and do it. So in a very quick nutshell, okay, make a plan. The fact is, the market is in a flux. The market is evolving quickly, and nothing's going to stay the same. If you don't think about reinventing yourself now, okay, this current version of you may not be in demand, or may not be in that big a demand in 2025. And what are you going to do about it? In 2025, are you going to worry about it? Or is that 2025 you going to look back and say, whew, thanks to the 2020 me, I pivoted out and I reinvented myself back then. Okay? So adopt a longer term picture when it comes to reinventing yourself. And what I always say, seek help. So where you are right now, if you're thinking of reinventing yourself, you're what we call a crossroader. So what we can recommend is basically talk to the experts, and just a very quick pitch. That's what we do. We run this career clarity workshop for the past. Right now we're at intake 47 already. Okay, and we talk about strategies. We talk about strategy development. We talk about understanding your pitch, understanding how do you play this careers game to achieve longevity? Okay, and if you're looking at job search, how do you then leverage off your career strategy into a job search strategy? Okay, so that's basically what we do, and we've had a whole list of clients, a very long list. We'll come to the close. Do you have any questions?
I do. Can I start first?
Yes, Ching Su.
Well, first and foremost, I wonder if those beautiful images you have, did you pay royalty on them or not?
Yes. In fact, I have paid royalty. Otherwise, I cannot sue.
Yeah. Okay, so we have a wide range of age groups here. And I wonder how late is too late to do a career switch? Both from the perspective of the potential employer and from your perspective in wanting to change, right? What have you seen so far?
Okay, you have to define career switch. So I have seen people, CFOs in their late 50s, okay, switch over to becoming coaches, okay, or freelancers. So in a way, that's also a switch. It's a very gentle switch. I've seen people in their 30s switch into teaching. So that's also a switch. Hard and fast rule, you're never too old to switch. The whole idea is, are you switching? Number one, you need to know why you're switching. Number two, was this a planned switch, or is it a spur of the moment switch? Was it a strategic switch? Okay. But if you ask me about age, a question which I'm always asked is, are there different career strategies for different age groups? And my response is this. Number one, if you're in your 20s, it's all about learning. It's all about making mistakes, experimenting, and it's fine. You can switch 2-3 jobs. It's perfectly fine. If you are in your 30s, that's where you develop specializations. Okay, you have to be the industry expert. You got to sing your roots really, really deep. You got to sing your roots deep, and you got to be the master of your space. Because when you're in your 40s, that's where you're in biggest demand, and that's where your salary and your earning capacity shoots up through the roof. If you have had your strategy at 30 played right, okay? And then in your 50s, you basically figure out what you want to do for the rest of your life in terms of keeping busy, and hopefully by the time you're in your 50s, you would already have all the financial independence that you required. Okay, so there are different strategies at different points in time, and once again, you need to have the strategy in play in order to be successful.
Yeah, but that implies that one needs to have the luxury of the financial means to change, because that, changing means trade-offs, right? In terms
Correct.
of earning potential, in terms of the actual role that you want, right?
Yeah.
Which a lot of us is like a drug, right? Once you join a nice corporation, you get all the perks, you get a lovely office, travel expenses, and a nice paycheck. It's difficult, huh?
It is, and that's why you got to plan. Okay, and that's why a career strategy it's not just a standalone career strategy. Your career strategy has to match with your life strategy. Okay, what you want to do? Do you want to accelerate? Do you want to slow down for your kids? Do you want to work your ass off, or do you want to cruise? So your career strategy. So basically, there is a three-legged stool. Okay, there's a career strategy element to it, which you need to figure out. There's a life strategy element to it, which is related, and there's also the financial strategy to it. Okay, so what's the point of earning so much money but blowing so much money? Do you know in 2008, I was remember the famous 2008 crisis, right? I was headhunting. I got a call from a private banker, and this private banker, this lady, she called me up, mid-30s, and she said, "Adrian, I need you to help me find a job." And I said, "Sorry, I don't find jobs for people. Anyway, there's no job in the market now." She said, "I need to find me a job that pays me $500,000 a year, okay, as a base salary. But of course, I get a lot more than that. But I need." Then I said, "There's no market. There's no job now in the market. Everything's dried up, And she said, "You got to help me find a job in the next 2 months, because I only have enough money to last me 2 months before I have to sell things off." And I found out then that she was making lots of money, but she was leveraged to the hilt. Okay. And so you see, the career strategy, the life strategy did not meet the career strategy as well. So and the financial strategy was not there. So that's why, in order to be successful, okay, you have to think about holistically all three merging together into one. So yes, you have to be ideally, you're in a place where you can safely not have to work for the money. Okay, but the reality is a lot of us have to or haven't hit that stage yet. So that's where you probably need to make plans for the next 3 to 5 years for you to be able to do that. Okay, so it's all about long-term planning.
Thank you.
Yeah, I like what Shainal said. That he mentioned in a chat group. A prof at MIT said that you can change any one location, role, or industry at any given point. Doing 2 at the same time is a challenge. Doing 3 is very hard. Absolutely agree. Okay, so that's where you want to minimize all 3 variables at one go. Okay, but however, if you have a career strategy that in the next 10 years, I want to be located in another country, in another role, in another industry, that can be done in the sense that if you plan your move carefully, you switch one at a time. First, I switch industry maybe, and then in the same role. And then when I'm in industry for 3 to 5 years, I'm a master of the industry. I can switch role within the industry. And then when I'm a master in that space, then maybe I take a job somewhere in Australia where the demand is. So it can be done, not 3 years ago, but once again, strategy. Okay. Any questions? I see.
Hi, Adrian. Sashi here. So,
Hi, Sashi.
Yeah. Hey, so my question is a bit more probably based on, because you've been in the, let's say, the energy industry, or I may so call it, Shell and and the other industries. So considering how things are happening in the energy industry and the shift away, the away from the oil economy and all, do you see a lot of shift happening from the energy industry to other sectors? Because I'm myself part of the energy industry in a way. So, and I'm trying to see, how it figures into, whether to be in the same industry doing a sales role or pivot to a more general sales role. So, it's just, I just want to hear your, what you've been seeing, just more from a general point of view.
Okay. Well, when I was in Shell, oil was like $15 a barrel. So, and yet they were making money back then. Okay. So it's quite okay. It's going to be difficult. Once again, it depends whether you're upstream or downstream as well. If you're in oil and gas. And then it depends. That's why I said you need to know your market, and if you are in that space, what are the adjacent industries that you can move into? So I know a lot of my Shell guys who have been in Shell supply chain, they moved into supply chain but into something else, another industry supply chain. So you need to know what your pivots are and to see where you can move towards, okay? Once again, I know I sound like a nag, but it's all got to do with the thinking behind it and the strategy behind it, okay? We've seen people pivot very successfully and it's just amazing when they do. But once again, it's all about planning.
We got one question, I think, in the chat.
Yeah.
The question is actually for late 20s, 30, MBA is the best way for a pivot point. It comes with a lot. Okay, it's not a question. It's more of a, I guess.
Yeah, and MBAs are good, are useful. Okay, if you know what you're doing, but once again, it's not cheap, lah. So
cheap, and also previously you could travel, but now I guess you're restricted. I mean, yeah.
I have friends. So I have people who keep asking me, should I do an MBA? Should I do an MBA? And I always tell them, what is the purpose of doing the MBA? What's your purpose? If your purpose is to get, if you think you can double up your salary, the answer is then no, don't bother doing it. Okay, there's no guarantee. It may not happen overnight. It may happen. It may not happen overnight. Okay, but if you're on a knowledge quest, self-improvement, then yeah, by all means, go ahead and do it. But because I've seen some very disappointed people who graduate the MBA, and most of the time, I'm going to be very naughty here. Most of the time, they graduate with an unbranded MBA, okay, and they go up to employers and they say that, hey, you should pay me 50% premium because I have 3 letters now, MB and A, okay. So not going to happen. But once again, it's all about knowledge. It's all about expertise. Any other questions?
I can ask a question. Adrian, this is Shanel speaking. Thanks for addressing my comment earlier. That's really helpful. I found it insightful. I managed to do all 3 in one go.
Wow.
I left MIT, but it was a shit show and it was quite hard. But not to say it can't happen, but it's unlikely, right? And it worked out fine in the end, but it was a very steep learning curve.
Yeah.
I guess a question is like, one of the things I've noticed is some people who are able to define those goals and then stick to those schedules of change, let's call it, or skills acquisition. What are the tangible tools that people use, or the programs or process, and like where you've seen it being successful? Is it the kind of person who's like, okay, I've got a 3-month goal. Is it that you want them to write it down? Is it the career counselor? Where have these changes been most successful in your opinion, Adrian?
Okay, it's a good question, Shaino.
The broad question.
Well,
I hope it makes sense.
It's interesting. We actually recommend a career journal. Basically, just write it down. But the most important thing is the mindset shift. I mean, the whole idea that you need to when you realize that you're not going to be, you're not going to retire in the company you're in now, and as a result, where then do you go next? Who's going to hire you next, and why should they be hiring you? And am I up to scratch? Am I what the market wants? Okay. Sometimes just the realization that that is the harsh reality facing you, facing the future you, the 2025 you, it's enough for many to get off their comfort zones, to start going on a quest, so to speak, for a quest for what we call career clarity. Okay. And it may not result in an exact timeline. In the next 3 months, I must acquire these skills. In the next 6 months, I must get this other certification or not. It's the beginning of a quest to understand what makes understand the direction you want to head towards. Okay, and for us, we see the most effective quantum leaps is when that happens. I'll give you an example. We had a client in his mid 40s, okay, and he had been with very big telcos for the past 15 years, and he was doing quite well, but he suddenly realized that telcos aren't as sexy or aren't as cool as they used to be anymore. Okay, telcos as in, and interestingly, he used to be with Nokia and he used to be with BlackBerry, and then he moved to something else. And he realized that those two brands weren't actually working for him, because those two brands, well, you know what happened to those two brands, huh? And he was riding high on his laurels that what he felt was fantastic brands. And true, he was with the brands during the days when he was on the up and up, but he started realizing that he couldn't ride on those laurels anymore. And that was when he went for a couple of interviews. He got rejected flat out. Okay, and he was worried that he was becoming unemployable. And that's when he came to us, and we gave him a huge wake-up call, a huge paradigm shift in his thinking. Right down, because his arrogance in a way was leaking out in the interviews itself. So we sat down, we coached him, and more importantly, he realized that it's all about skills and what are the gaps he has. And he embarked on a journey for self. It's almost like 7 years in Tibet, but it didn't really take 7 years for him. It took him a short while, okay? But he became a better version of himself in terms of acquiring the skills and networking into the space and understanding where the demand was. And today he's with a startup, and quite a well-funded startup right now, who required his kind of skills. So it's a journey, and although there were no set deadlines, okay, all he needed was actually a kick in the butt. Okay, and after that, he went on his own momentum after that. And he's a big fan of ours even to today. Okay, so Shannon, I hope that kind of answered your question.
Okay, so I think time is up. Any final questions before we wrap up? Beavers and friends of MIT? Well, thank you, Adrian, for spending time with us. And I'd like to also highlight that Sashi, he is our guy in the EXCO that is helping to lead and facilitate all these webinars. And Sashi, you want to give a quick preview of what you have helped to line up the next 3 to 4 events, please?
Yes. So first of all, thank you everybody for joining in, and yeah, we'll not keep you waiting for long. So we've got exciting more versions of webinars or virtual engagement sessions. The next one coming up is in November, the November 18th. We have a Singapore-based biotechnology startup company which actually, has developed from a Singapore MIT Alliance funded research to now having their own company, and then they're, supported by A-Star and another venture capitalist company. So they'll be sharing their journey. So it's going to be, a mixture of both a sharing of the students who are now the lead researchers there versus the company CEO who's going to be speaking at the event. So we hope all of you can join that. We'll be marketing it out soon. And soon after that, in December, we have the director of the Singapore MIT Alliance for Research and Technology, which is called SMART, speaking with us, Professor Eugene Fitzgerald. So he'll be also talking about how to commercialize research and taking it beyond just research and monetize it. So that actually also might be a very good topic, which you might find it interesting, and we'll be soon, sending out marketing materials for that. So we would love to have your support as you've been doing it. So, and then starting next year, we have even more, a lineup of events where we'll be getting multiple consortiums together, both from the government as well as the industry, to have a common platform to share and have an engagement session. So that's just a brief outline, and we'll follow up with, I'm sure you all are on the list of the MIT emailers, and you'll be getting more information through that.
And just to give you a sneak peek to whet your appetites, the one in January is a trifecta. We have got the senior execs from SG Innovates, EDB Investments, and IMDA to have fireside chats on the investments ecosystem in Singapore. So lots of things are happening. Thank you, Sashi, and look forward to catching up with all of you again soon.